The rain fell like silver needles against the dark city streets, and the sound of a struggling engine echoed through the night. Steam rose from the hood of a luxury car parked helplessly by the curb. Pedestrians rushed past under umbrellas, barely noticing the scene. But the woman standing beside the car noticed everything, especially the man kneeling beside the engine. She was known across the city as a powerful, brilliant, and impossibly confident CEO. Her red dress shimmered under the streetlights, and her sharp gaze cut through the rain as she watched the stranger working under the hood of her expensive car. The engine had failed without warning, and none of her assistants, drivers, or mechanics were nearby. Then this man had appeared out of nowhere, a quiet stranger with tired eyes and grease-stained hands. He looked nothing like the people she usually trusted with million-dollar decisions. His jacket was worn, his shoes soaked, and yet his hands moved across the engine with calm precision. Frustrated and amused at the same time, she had laughed lightly and tossed out a challenge that sounded half like a joke and half like a test. "Fix my car, and I'll kiss you." Before we continue this unforgettable story, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of unexpected moments that change lives. The man had paused for only a second when she said it. He didn't smile. He didn't flirt. He simply looked at the engine again, as if her words were just another raindrop falling on the pavement. Most people in the city would have recognized the woman instantly. She owned half the skyline, built companies from nothing, and appeared regularly on magazine covers. People chased her attention like it was gold. But the stranger didn't seem to care. His name was Daniel Carter, though nobody standing nearby knew it. He was a single father who had spent the last few years working 2 jobs just to keep a small apartment and raise his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. During the day he worked at a repair garage that barely paid enough to survive. At night he drove delivery routes or helped stranded drivers like this one when he could. His hands were steady not because he was confident, but because he had spent years fixing broken things, cars, machines, and sometimes even his own life. The woman watched him closely as he worked. Rain soaked his hair and jacket, but he never complained. Steam hissed from the engine, glowing orange under the streetlights. Every movement he made was careful, focused, almost gentle. For the first time that evening, her confidence softened into curiosity. Most men she met tried too hard to impress her. They bragged, flirted, or nervously stumbled over their words. But this man acted like none of that mattered. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. The rain grew heavier, and the street slowly emptied. Finally Daniel tightened one last bolt, wiped his hands on a cloth, and closed the hood. The engine started with a deep, smooth roar. The woman blinked in disbelief. Her luxury car, the one 3 professional mechanics had failed to repair earlier that week, was suddenly running perfectly. For a moment she simply stared at him, speechless. Daniel stepped back from the car and gave a small nod, as if the job had been nothing special. He didn't ask for money. He didn't remind her about the challenge she had made. Instead, he picked up his old toolbox. But the woman stopped him. Something about the quiet dignity in his tired eyes made her feel strangely uncomfortable. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't pride. It was something rarer. Self-respect. She realized suddenly that the kiss she had jokingly offered now felt small, almost meaningless. Because the man in front of her clearly wasn't someone who needed approval from anyone. And that realization shook her more than she expected. Daniel turned slightly as if ready to walk away into the rain. He had no idea the woman watching him owned companies worth billions. He didn't know reporters followed her every move or that people fought for 5 minutes of her time. All he knew was that somewhere across town, a little girl was probably waiting for him to come home and read her a bedtime story. So he simply said the engine should run fine now and wished her a good night. Then he began walking down the wet street. The woman stood frozen beside her car, the red dress glowing under the streetlight while the stranger disappeared through the rain. For the first time in years, she felt something unexpected. Respect. And curiosity. The next morning, inside a glass tower overlooking the entire city, the CEO sat quietly at the head of a massive boardroom table. Her executives discussed profits, contracts, and expansion plans, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the man in the rain. She had spent her entire career surrounded by powerful people. Yet somehow the quiet mechanic with the worn jacket had left a stronger impression than any of them. Later that day, she asked her assistant to find him. It wasn't easy. But eventually they discovered the small repair garage where Daniel worked. When she arrived there in person, the mechanics froze in shock. Expensive cars never came to their dusty shop, and powerful CEOs certainly didn't walk through the door. Daniel looked up from under another car, confused by the sudden silence in the room. When he saw her, recognition slowly crossed his face. But there was no excitement. Only calm curiosity. The woman who owned skyscrapers was suddenly standing in the same humble garage where he spent his days fixing worn-out engines. For the first time in years, she felt nervous. Because she realized something simple but powerful. This man had helped her without knowing who she was. Without expecting anything in return. And that kind of honesty couldn't be bought. It had to be respected. Before the story reaches its final moment, we have a special request for you. Comment the word kindness below if you believe that even the smallest good deed can change someone's life forever. Days later, the CEO made a decision that shocked her entire company. Instead of hiring a famous consulting firm for a new project involving community development and affordable transportation services, she chose someone completely unexpected. Daniel Carter. Not as a mechanic, but as a partner in a program designed to help struggling families keep their vehicles running so they could keep their jobs and support their children. Because she had realized something important. Success wasn't just about wealth or power. Sometimes it was about the quiet strength of a single father who stopped in the rain to help a stranger. Years later, people across the city would talk about the program that changed thousands of lives. But Daniel never bragged about it. He still worked with his hands. He still came home every evening to read bedtime stories to Lily. And every now and then, when the rain fell against the city lights, the powerful CEO would remember the night a stranger fixed her car and reminded her what real character looked like. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and comment below. Your support helps spread stories of kindness and hope that the world truly needs.